came out wearing these shirts, pay us what you owe us. The WNBA loses $50 million. Oh my God.
She's received so far in her rookie season.
Jesus.
The WNBA has had 30 flagrant fouls this season.
Fever taking on the Chicago Sky on Saturday. The Sky's Kennedy Carter hitting a shot, then to Clark and shoulder checking her. The refs called it a common foul.
The WNBA has been making headlines recently, not only for the players' demands for higher pay, but also for the growing controversies surrounding Caitlin Clark. The conversation is loud, emotional, and at times divisive. And today, we are going to break down what is really happening inside the league. From historic but questionable salary changes to players openly calling for more money despite the WNBA losing millions every year, to the rising hostility and even racism directed at Caitlin Clark. We are going to analyze it all step by step. This is not about sugarcoating anything. It is about looking at the facts, understanding the frustrations, and pointing out where the league has gone wrong. And before we dive into it, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications. Your support helps us continue bringing the raw and unfiltered truth about the NBA, WNBA, and the sports world overall. Now let's get started with Section 1. When Asmongold pointed out that WNBA players are receiving an additional $20 in salary next year and called it historic, he was highlighting both the absurdity and the irony of the situation. On paper, yes, any raise could be described as historic, but the reality is far different. The players are demanding higher pay, but the league itself is in no position to offer it. Unlike the NBA, which generates billions annually, the WNBA has consistently operated at a loss. Sources have reported that the league loses around $50 million each year, and that loss is only covered because the NBA props it up. This means that describing a $20 raise as historic almost feels more like satire than a genuine improvement. It underscores just how far away the league is from financial independence. The bigger issue here is that the WNBA players have long argued that they deserve equal pay, or at least pay that better reflects their skill and effort. While their passion for the game cannot be denied, the harsh truth is that compensation in professional sports is tied directly to revenue. If a league cannot sell out arenas, cannot secure major broadcast ratings, and cannot build consistent fan interest, there is no realistic financial foundation to justify higher salaries. That $20 raise is not symbolic of progress. It is symbolic of how little progress has actually been made. When Asmongold calls this historic, what he is really pointing out is the disconnect between the WNBA's demands and its financial reality. Players want more money, but the league has yet to prove it can sustain itself without NBA subsidies. That contradiction sits at the heart of this debate. It is not about whether the women deserve more respect. It is about whether the league has built a product that fans want to buy into. Until that equation changes, these historic raises will remain nothing more than symbolic gestures.
Breaking: WNBA players will earn an additional $20 in salary next year. The league sources describe the move as historic.
The moment when all WNBA players came out wearing shirts that read, "Pay us what you owe us," was designed to be a powerful visual protest, but Asmongold immediately pointed out the glaring contradiction. The league loses $50 million annually. This changes the entire conversation because it shifts the question from what do players deserve to what can the league actually afford. In a typical labor dispute, workers are asking for a bigger share of profits. In the WNBA, the uncomfortable truth is that there are no profits to share. This creates a paradox that many fans outside the WNBA bubble cannot ignore. How can players demand to be paid what they are owed when the league does not generate the money to support those demands? Wearing the shirts may have gained attention, but it also opened the players up to criticism because it made the financial shortcomings of the league front and center. The fact that the league is subsidized by the NBA makes this even more complicated. Without the NBA's financial backing, the WNBA would not exist at its current level. So when players demand more money, what they are really demanding is for the NBA to keep covering larger losses. The optics of this also matter. Fans see the WNBA losing millions and then see players asking for more, and the natural reaction is frustration or mockery. That is exactly why Asmongold framed it the way he did. The "pay us what you owe us" slogan sounds empowering, but it falls flat when measured against the reality of the league's financial situation. This contradiction hurts the credibility of the players' argument because it looks like entitlement rather than a legitimate demand. Instead of rallying new fans, it alienates them further, reinforcing the perception that the WNBA is disconnected from the reality of its marketplace.
So that means that every WNBA player owes the NBA hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Asmongold's remark that every player in the WNBA technically owes the NBA hundreds of dollars is a brutal but accurate reflection of how upside down the league's economics really are. Instead of the players driving revenue and creating profits, they are part of a system that relies heavily on financial bailouts from the NBA. The subsidies are not small either. Reports consistently show that the NBA absorbs massive yearly losses just to keep the WNBA afloat. This creates a dynamic where instead of players being net earners, they are essentially net liabilities. That is what Asmongold means when he says they owe money. The truth is that without the NBA, the WNBA cannot sustain its salaries, its marketing, or even its operations. This reality undermines the players' demand for higher pay because, in a business sense, they are not bringing in enough revenue to cover even their current wages. The fans who do show up and the few broadcasting deals that exist do not generate anywhere near the level of income required to keep the league profitable. This is not about whether the women work hard or play well. It is about whether the product is viable in a free market, and as of now, the numbers say it is not. This perspective also fuels resentment among fans who feel like the NBA is propping up a failing enterprise. It is one thing to support women's sports, but it is another thing entirely to continuously funnel money into a league that cannot stand on its own while its players demand even more. That contradiction is what creates the perception of unearned entitlement. Instead of being viewed as underdogs fighting for respect, WNBA players are often seen as asking for more while contributing less. This is why the conversation around Caitlin Clark becomes so important. She is the one player who has managed to shift the needle in terms of fan interest, but even her presence has sparked jealousy, hostility, and outright racism from others in the league.
Like, yeah, I think we go with this, right? It seems like it's smart. WNBA has never been profitable.
Asmongold makes a blunt but undeniable point when he says that the WNBA has never been profitable. That is not an opinion rooted in bias. It is a cold fact that many in the sports world try to sweep under the rug. Year after year, the WNBA has been propped up not by ticket sales, television ratings, or merchandise revenue, but by subsidies from the NBA and corporate sponsors desperate to appear progressive. The numbers do not lie. When a business model cannot sustain itself for decades despite marketing campaigns, media boosts, and even government-backed narratives pushing for visibility, then it is safe to say it has failed as a self-sufficient sports product. Asmongold cuts through the noise here by highlighting that profitability is the ultimate test of value in sports entertainment. The NBA is a billion-dollar empire because fans are willing to pour money into it. The WNBA, despite having some talented athletes, has never generated that organic demand. What makes this statement sting is that it points directly to the reality that no matter how much media outlets try to glorify the WNBA, the market decides. Sports is about passion, and fans do not respond to something just because they are told they should. They respond to greatness, to drama, to moments that electrify history. Michael Jordan soaring through the air, Kobe Bryant dropping 81 points, Stephen Curry revolutionizing the game with his shooting. These are moments that define eras and bring billions of dollars to the NBA. The WNBA has not produced anything remotely comparable in cultural impact. It has not generated a moment that shook the world or created a permanent shift in how fans view basketball. Asmongold's words echo the truth that even after nearly 3 decades, the WNBA is still a league looking for an identity, still dependent on charity rather than thriving on its own. The profitability issue is not about gender, as critics often misrepresent. It is about economics. If fans truly cared enough about the WNBA to fill arenas, buy jerseys, and tune in religiously, then the league would be profitable. But the harsh truth is that fans have consistently rejected the product. Caitlin Clark has provided a spark, but one rookie cannot erase decades of disinterest. If anything, her arrival shows that the league has always lacked transcendent stars who could break into mainstream sports culture. The NBA was saved by Magic Johnson and Larry Bird, then elevated into a global spectacle by Michael Jordan. The WNBA has been searching for its Jordan for nearly 30 years and still has not found one. Without profitability, without a star who can carry the league on her back, and without consistent fan demand, Asmongold's point becomes undeniable. The WNBA's existence has been artificially extended, but the financial truth looms over it like a shadow. Profitability is the measure of true success, and the WNBA has never had it.
I don't even understand. The only reason why people watch the WNBA now is because of her, because they want to see who's going to try to like stab her.
When Asmongold says he does not even understand why people watch the WNBA and claims the only reason people tune in is Caitlin Clark, he is saying what many fans think but are afraid to admit. Caitlin Clark has become the sole reason casual viewers are even paying attention to the WNBA, and not necessarily because of her talent alone, but because of the spectacle surrounding her. She has been relentlessly targeted, fouled, shoved, and even disrespected in ways that would cause outrage if she were in the NBA. WNBA. People are not tuning in because they care about the league. They are tuning in to see whether Caitlin Clark survives the next game. That is the sad state of the WNBA, a professional basketball league that cannot hold the spotlight on its own merit, but instead thrives on the drama and controversy surrounding one player. The reality is that before Caitlin Clark, WNBA highlights were barely talked about outside of niche circles. Now, every foul she receives becomes a viral clip, every hard shove becomes a trending topic, and every headline revolves around whether she is being unfairly treated. Asmongold is correct in pointing out that this is not organic basketball fandom. This is drama-driven attention. Fans are not watching because they love the WNBA's brand of basketball. They are watching because Caitlin Clark has become a lightning rod. She is simultaneously the league's savior and its biggest victim, carrying its viewership numbers on her back while also being the target of players who seem threatened by her sudden star power. This is not sustainable. A league cannot survive on one player's controversy alone. When Michael Jordan came into the NBA, yes, he was the biggest draw, but his presence elevated the league as a whole. Stars like Magic, Bird, and eventually Shaq and Kobe all helped build a culture where the NBA was must-watch television regardless of who was playing. The WNBA, by contrast, has one focal point, and without her, the narrative collapses. Asmongold's harsh criticism hits the heart of the issue. People are not watching the WNBA for basketball. They are watching for Caitlin Clark's story. That is not fandom. That is spectacle, and it reveals just how shallow the league's fan base really is.
There's this one clip I saw of Caitlin Clark, like, trying to fucking shoot a basket, and like some girl comes in there, fucking saber-toothed tiger, and fucking claws her fucking face.
Asmongold describes a shocking clip where Caitlin Clark is about to shoot a basket when another player charges at her like a wild animal, clawing at her face. This visual metaphor is disturbing but accurate. What should be a competitive basketball game has instead turned into a gladiatorial contest where one rookie player is hunted as if her presence threatens the very foundation of the league. The image of Clark trying to focus on her craft only to be attacked in ways that resemble street fighting rather than professional basketball encapsulates everything wrong with the WNBA right now. This is not competition, it is targeted aggression. Instead of celebrating Clark as the rookie phenom who is finally giving the league relevance, many players are going out of their way to sabotage her. This tells us two things. First, it reveals a level of insecurity within the league. Players who have been in the WNBA for years see Clark getting more attention in a single season than they have in their entire careers. Instead of embracing her as the rising tide that could lift all boats, they resent her and attempt to diminish her. Second, it highlights just how desperate the WNBA is to generate buzz. Clips of Clark being fouled hard or attacked on the court go viral instantly, but that is not the type of publicity any league should want. It makes the product look unprofessional, unsafe, and unappealing to families or young fans. When the defining highlight of your league is a rookie nearly getting assaulted on the court, then the league has failed at presenting real basketball. Asmongold's saber-tooth metaphor captures that primal, chaotic energy that has overtaken the WNBA. It is less about the sport and more about the spectacle of whether Clark can endure the punishment. That is not basketball. That is theater, and not in a good way. A sport thrives when its stars are allowed to shine, when fans tune in to see brilliance on the court, not brutality. Caitlin Clark's presence should have been the dawn of a new era for the WNBA, but instead, it has exposed the jealousy, bitterness, and lack of professionalism lurking beneath the surface.
If you consult the graph that I've just posted here, you'll see that nobody is watching the WNBA. So this is the reason why the WNBA isn't making any money.
Asmongold could not have been more blunt when he pulled up that graph and essentially held a mirror to the WNBA's most painful truth: empty seats. Numbers do not lie. The raw data tells a story that words alone cannot. When you see the seats empty and the stands deserted, the argument that the league is healthy immediately collapses. It is not about being harsh. It is about facing reality. Sports are built on fandom, on people filling arenas, buying tickets, living and dying with every possession. If that element is missing, you do not have a sustainable sport. You have a passion project being artificially kept alive. Asmongold cuts straight to the root by pointing out that nobody is watching. When he says it, it echoes because the evidence is right there in front of your eyes. No fans, no atmosphere, no culture, and no money flowing in. Think about what that means. The NBA, the NFL, the Premier League, or even college basketball thrive because the seats are always packed. That energy is contagious, it bleeds into the TV broadcast, it attracts sponsors, and it builds narratives. When you look at the WNBA, the opposite is true. Empty seats create dead air. It is depressing to watch a sport with no one cheering. It kills the perception of importance. It makes viewers at home question whether this league even matters. When a graph proves that the majority of WNBA games are drawing fewer people than minor league baseball or even high school tournaments, the excuse-making ends. The problem is structural. Asmongold's honesty stings for the league, but it is necessary. The WNBA has been around since 1996. That is almost 3 decades to build a fan base, create rivalries, and inspire player loyalty, yet it remains stagnant. Without Caitlin Clark, the numbers would look even worse. She is a once-in-a-generation lightning rod, but the league cannot survive on one star alone. The graph makes this truth inescapable. Attendance is down, interest is limited. Television ratings spike only when controversy is attached. That is not growth, that is exploitation. And this is where the financial bleeding ties in. Empty seats are not just about pride, they are about revenue. Every ticket not sold is money lost. Every empty arena is a wasted opportunity to generate merchandise sales, concessions, parking, and future loyalty. It is a vicious cycle. Fans do not show up because they do not care, and because fans do not show up, there is no money to make the product better. Asmongold points directly at this loop when he says, "This is the reason the WNBA is not making any money." He did not sugarcoat it. He did not say it in a roundabout way. He simply said what everyone sees, but few are brave enough to admit. The WNBA is trying to use the NBA as a crutch, but the NBA's global success only makes the contrast worse. When you see LeBron fill an arena or Giannis electrify a crowd in Milwaukee, then flip the channel to see Indiana Fever struggle to fill the first 5 rows. The gap looks like a canyon. Sports are tribal. People want to be part of something bigger than themselves. If the tribe does not exist, if the seats remain empty, the product becomes disposable. That is what Asmongold's graph illustrated. Cold, undeniable, unforgiving truth.
Fever taking on the Chicago Sky on Saturday. The Sky's Kennedy Carter hitting a shot, then to Clark and shoulder checking her. The refs called it a common foul.
This moment with Kennedy Carter and Caitlin Clark was more than just a basketball play. It was a cultural flashpoint. When Carter shoulder-checked Clark after draining a basket, the tension in the WNBA boiled over into one viral clip. Asmongold seizes on this because it speaks volumes about where the league is and why people are watching. Let us break it down. Carter hits a shot. Fine, nothing out of the ordinary. But then she makes a deliberate choice to walk directly into Caitlin Clark's space and throw her body into her. That is not basketball. That is targeted aggression. The referee initially downplayed it, calling it a common foul, but the league office overruled and upgraded it to a flagrant foul. That upgrade is significant. It reveals 2 things. The referees on the floor failed to protect Clark, and the league had to step in afterward to cover its own image. Caitlin Clark is the engine of the WNBA right now. Whether the players like it or not, she is the reason fans are tuning in. She is the ticket seller. She is the headline. And when the league allows her to get cheap-shotted without immediate protection, it damages the entire product. Imagine if the NBA let LeBron James or Stephen Curry get targeted like that without consequences. The league would crumble under criticism. Protecting stars is not optional. It is essential. Stars are the currency of sports. Without them, nobody cares. Carter's shoulder check symbolized the resentment many WNBA players feel toward Clark. They see her as the golden child who walked in and took the spotlight. But resentment does not sell tickets. Fans do not want to watch bitterness disguised as competition. What makes this worse is the optics. The clip went viral not because of a great play, but because of blatant hostility. Instead of showcasing skill, it showcased animosity. And that is exactly why Asmongold calls it out. He is highlighting that the drama is overshadowing the sport itself. Fans are tuning in to see what happens to Clark, not what happens in the game. That is a dangerous place for any league to be. It means the league's biggest attraction is also its biggest target. And unless the WNBA protects her, this story will not end with Clark flourishing. It will end with her being physically broken down. The league's decision to upgrade the foul after the fact exposes its desperation. They want to look like they are taking control, but the damage is already done. Social media already saw the incident. Fans already drew their conclusions. The perception is set. Caitlin Clark is under attack, and the referees cannot handle it. That is not good for business. Rivalries are healthy when they are rooted in competition. They are toxic when they are rooted in envy and cheap shots. Asmongold recognized this, and by pointing it out, he emphasized how fragile the WNBA really is.
And so anyway, yeah, people are watching this. The only reason why people are watching this is they're watching for the crash outs, man.
When Asmongold says that the only reason people are watching the WNBA is because of the crash outs, he delivers a devastating critique. He is saying that the drama, the chaos, the mistakes, and the controversies are the only things keeping eyeballs on the product. Think about how damning that is. A sports league should be about excellence. It should be about athletic achievement, about players pushing the boundaries of what humans can do. But Asmongold strips the veneer away and shows us the ugly truth. People are not tuning in to see skill. They are tuning in to see train wrecks. That is what he means by crash outs. It is not admiration. It is voyeurism. And he is not wrong. Every viral clip from the WNBA lately has not been about beautiful basketball. It has been about fights, hard fouls, missed layups, or bizarre drama between players. The product is being consumed like reality television, not like professional sports. People are rubbernecking at the disaster, not celebrating the craft. That is catastrophic for the league's future, because you cannot build loyalty on mockery. You cannot sustain growth on accidents and controversies. Fans who show up for crash outs are not loyal fans. They are spectators waiting for the next mess. That is why Asmongold's words cut so deep. He is revealing that the WNBA is not respected as sport. It is treated treated as spectacle. This is where Caitlin Clark's role becomes central again. She is the lightning rod. The crash-outs usually involve her, either as the victim or as the catalyst. Without her, the league would not even have these viral moments to latch onto. And that is a frightening realization. It means that instead of developing talent, building narratives, and crafting legacies, the WNBA is surviving on controversy. It is eating itself alive for attention. That is not growth. That is desperation. Sports history tells us what happens to leagues that depend on chaos instead of quality. They fade. They get remembered as jokes, not institutions. The XFL tried to sell spectacle and fizzle. Celebrity boxing thrives for a moment, but never sustains. For the WNBA to be mentioned in this same breath is humiliating. And yet, Asmongold is correct. Right now, people are not watching because they respect the game. They are watching to see who crashes out next. That is not greatness. That is dysfunction.
Oh my God!
She's received so far in her rookie season.
Jesus!
The WNBA has had 30 flagrant fouls this season.
When Asmongold points out that Caitlin Clark has already absorbed 30 flagrant fouls in a single season, it stops being about coincidence or clumsy defense. That is a calculated campaign of hostility, a deliberate targeting of the league's most valuable and visible player. 30 times in 1 year, players have decided that rather than compete with her on skill, the answer is to physically knock her down, to rattle her, to intimidate her. That is not basketball. That is not sportsmanship. That is sabotage against the one player who has managed to ignite genuine excitement for a league that has otherwise struggled for decades to matter in the broader sports conversation. Think about the sheer weight of this statistic. 30 flagrant fouls is not just an outlier, it is an indictment. If this was happening in the NBA, the conversation would dominate sports media for weeks. If LeBron James, Kevin Durant, or Steph Curry were repeatedly blindsided with intentional fouls designed to throw them to the floor, the outrage would be deafening. The league office would be under fire. Suspensions would be handed out left and right. Yet because it is Caitlin Clark, the WNBA tries to sweep it under the rug as if it were merely part of the game. That kind of selective silence exposes a deeper truth. The WNBA is failing to protect its most marketable star. The intent behind those fouls is equally alarming. Asmongold highlights that players are purposely bumping into her, looking for contact, going out of their way to send her to the floor. That is not random. That is strategy. But it is not the strategy of competitors. It is the strategy of people who feel threatened. When a player has to endure that level of physical targeting just to step on the court, it is a clear admission that the league has no better answer for her talent. Clark's presence alone has exposed the limitations of the rest of the league. They cannot keep up with her shooting range, her leadership, or her poise under pressure, so they resort to what bullies have always resorted to: brute force. And what is worse is that the referees in the league itself seem content to let it happen. Instead of rising to the occasion and defending Clark's right to play in a fair, safe environment, they look the other way while a generational talent is battered game after game. This is not just about Clark either. This is about the WNBA's credibility. A league that allows its brightest star to be repeatedly assaulted without consequence tells fans that it does not value skill, it values politics. It tells aspiring players that dominance will not be rewarded, it will be punished. It tells audiences that the league would rather play into a culture of hostility than actually nurture the one player who could lift it into real relevance. If the WNBA cannot keep Caitlin Clark upright, why should the casual fan invest their time? They will look at the empty seats, look at the repeated assaults, and conclude that the league itself is its own worst enemy. What Asmongold understands here, and what too many defenders of the league ignore, is that 30 flagrant fouls is not the cost of being great. It is the cost of being envied in a league that cannot handle true greatness. That envy, weaponized into physical attacks, strips the game of dignity and strips the league of respect. If this is how Clark is treated in her rookie season, what message does that send to the next star who might consider joining the WNBA? Why would they bother if the reward for talent is open season on their body? The league must decide: protect Caitlin Clark and elevate the game, or continue allowing this nonsense and guarantee that fans turn away in disgust.
It's just, I think it's a jealousy thing, because like she's gotten well known for being like a female basketball player.
Jealousy is a poison, and in the WNBA's case, it has become the dominant emotion driving its narrative around Caitlin Clark. Asmongold gets straight to the heart of the matter. Clark is targeted not because she's arrogant, not because she has disrespected anyone, but because she is good. Very good. So good, in fact, that her name carries more weight than the entire league she plays in. That imbalance of spotlight is not her fault. It is the fault of a league that failed to build stars before her. Now, instead of welcoming the gift of relevance that Clark brings, too many of her peers resent her for it. They see her endorsements, her headlines, her millions of fans tuning in just to watch her, and they bristle with envy. But here is the truth. Clark earned every bit of her fame. Her dominance at Iowa was not manufactured. Her records were not given to her. She worked for them. She delivered under pressure, and she turned college basketball into a cultural phenomenon. That is not luck. That is greatness. What makes the jealousy so petty is that it blinds these players to the obvious fact that Caitlin Clark is good for all of them. When Clark plays, ratings spike. When Clark is on the floor, attendance rises. When Clark is in the conversation, suddenly the WNBA has an audience that stretches beyond its insular base. Every player in that league benefits financially and reputationally from her success, but instead of gratitude, too many respond with bitterness. It is as if they would rather sink together in irrelevance than allow Clark to pull them into relevance while standing a step above. That is pride at its most destructive and jealousy at its most transparent. Asmongold calls it out for what it is, and he is right. Jealousy explains the shoulder checks, the unnecessary flagrant fouls, and the dismissive body language toward Clark. It is not about competitive spirit. It is about resentment that one player has outshined them all. But history has shown us that true legends always face jealousy. Michael Jordan faced it. Serena Williams faced it. Tom Brady faced it. Whenever an athlete rises above their peers, envy follows like a shadow. The difference is that in those cases, the league, the media, and the fan base celebrated the greatness instead of trying to diminish it. In the WNBA's case, jealousy is not just tolerated, it is weaponized, and that makes the entire product look small. The harsh reality for Clark's detractors is that jealousy cannot stop inevitability. She is too good to be ignored. She will continue to hit deep threes, to energize fans, to inspire the next generation, and to expand the sport whether her opponents like it or not. Jealousy may bruise her body, but it will not break her momentum. If anything, it makes her story more compelling because it casts her as the lone star battling not just defenses, but the bitterness of an entire league. That is a narrative fans rally around. That is how legends are built. When Asmongold points out that 4 of the latest 5 flagrant fouls against Caitlin Clark came from the Chicago Sky, he is not describing coincidence. He is describing a pattern. That level of targeting crosses the line from competition into obsession. When one team seems intent on taking shots at Clark game after game, it is clear that she has become more than just an opponent. She has become a symbol of everything they resent. The Sky are not just trying to beat her on the scoreboard, they are trying to diminish her physically and mentally. That kind of relentless targeting is unsustainable if the league cares at all about protecting its assets. Yet here we are, watching the same team commit flagrant fouls without significant consequence, as if the league is content to let Clark serve as a punching bag for collective frustration. Asmongold goes further by raising the uncomfortable but undeniable issue of race. He is careful to frame it honestly. The primary motive is jealousy, but there is an undertone of racial animosity that cannot be ignored. Clark's meteoric rise, her endorsements, her fan base, and her media presence all highlight her as the face of the WNBA. For some, that spotlight feels unjust, especially when it shines on a young white woman in a league dominated by black athletes. That resentment, whether conscious or subconscious, fuels part of the hostility she endures. It is not the whole story, but it is a factor, and ignoring it only allows it to fester. Sports are supposed to unite, to celebrate excellence regardless of background. Yet in this case, the dynamics of race and jealousy intertwine to create a toxic atmosphere where Clark's success is treated as a threat rather than an opportunity. The combination of jealousy and racial tension makes this issue explosive. On one hand, Clark is clearly the most talented and marketable player in the league, and on the other, she is treated with open hostility by opponents who should be elevating the game alongside her. Instead of rallying behind their shared moment in the spotlight, they are tearing it down from within. Fans see it, commentators see it, and now voices like Asmongold are amplifying it. The longer the WNBA allows this pattern of fouls and hostility to continue, the more it looks like a league incapable of handling success. It looks insecure, petty, and fractured at its core. The Chicago Sky, in particular, have cemented themselves as villains in this narrative. 4 out of 5 recent flagrant fouls coming from one team is no accident. That is a vendetta, plain and simple, and whether fueled by jealousy, race, or both, it reflects poorly not just on the players involved, but on the entire organization. The Sky are not remembered for their basketball. They are remembered for their hostility toward the player who could save the league's relevance. That is a legacy no professional team should want to own. Asmongold's analysis here cuts to the painful reality. Caitlin Clark's greatest challenge is not her opponent's skills, it is their resentment. Jealousy is the driving force. Race may be an undertone, and together they create a toxic brew that undermines the sport. But what her detractors fail to realize is that every shove, every flagrant foul, every hostile gesture only magnifies her story. Fans rally around underdogs who are unfairly targeted, and Clark, despite being the best player, has been cast as the underdog against her own league. That makes her journey compelling, that makes her resilience inspiring, and that ultimately makes her bigger than the WNBA itself.
Been committed against Clark, 4 of them have been committed by the Chicago Sky.
Racism
so, yeah,
too? I mean, you say maybe racism, you could say maybe a bit of that, but I honestly think that the primary reason is just because they're jealous.
Caitlin Clark's story in the WNBA is not just about basketball. It is about survival in a league that seems more eager to humble her than to celebrate her. 30 flagrant fouls in a single year, repeated targeting by specific teams, a wave of jealousy from her peers, and even undertones of racial resentment all combine into one undeniable truth. The WNBA does not know how to handle greatness. Instead of protecting its most valuable star, it has allowed bitterness and hostility to dictate the narrative. That is why Asmongold's commentary resonates so strongly. He says what the league will not. Clark is the reason anyone cares about the WNBA, yet she is punished for being too good, too popular, too visible. But here is the twist the league cannot see. Every act of hostility only elevates her further. Fans love a star who is unfair unfairly targeted because it gives them someone to root for, someone to defend, someone to rally around. Clark is becoming that figure. She is no longer just a great shooter or a marketable athlete. She is the player who endures cheap shots, jealousy, and systemic indifference and still shines through it all. That makes her more than a star. It makes her a symbol. The WNBA has a choice to make. It can continue letting its players tear down the one person keeping it relevant, or it can embrace Clark as the face of its future. But whether the league chooses wisely or not, Caitlin Clark's place in history is already secure. She has shown resilience in the face of envy, grace under physical assault, and excellence despite every effort to diminish her. That is how legends are forged. And as long as she keeps rising above the chaos, fans will keep watching her, even if they never care about the WNBA as a whole.